Okay, so this is just a quick tutorial on how to get your information from your shapefile out into Excel so that you can do some plotting, in this case of the relationship or lack of relationship between surrounding land cover and the species of your choice. Table to Excel, definitely the tool to use. So what I was showing you in class, way more complicated. Table to Excel is definitely much easier as far as getting those data directly into an Excel table. Just as a reminder, though, you need to first, pay attention to what the table is that you actually want to export. So ideally, the exported table should be, associated with your camera trap data. So should have both the attributes associated with, you know, the animals of your choice or whatever, and then in your case, should ideally have, additional columns or fields after this indicating, land cover, forest cover, residential cover, or impervious surface, or whatever it is within different distances, buffer distances away from your animal. So I don't have that in my shapefile. I just have the original data, but let's pretend that I did have that, and we'll go forward with the table to Excel. So I know that this camera traps is the shapefile whose attribute table I want to export. And then I need to choose my location, and temp is perfect. I did this before, so I will call this camera output or something like that so that I can recognize it when I go to that file. And this is usually pretty fast. So while that's doing, I'm going to open Excel. All right, and people have love-hate relationships with Excel, so I actually think Excel works pretty nicely for simple plotting things. So if you wanted to make scatter plots or bar charts, histograms, Excel is pretty nice. Certainly much nicer, I think, than GIS is for doing those things, because GIS is not designed to plot data. So I like to use Excel, and if you're, as you get more familiar with it, just like any other software, it goes pretty fast. Okay, so here was my temp folder with my camera output. Excel is already open, so hopefully this will open pretty quickly. And you'll see those same attribute fields with all of my 39, hopefully, objects in it. The spacing is a little funky, but don't worry about it. It's okay. It's basically just GIS defining how wide these different columns are going to be. So let's say that I am interested in chipmunks. Okay, so I'm just going to highlight those to remind me that chipmunks are the thing that I'm interested in. If you're interested in chipmunks, then you don't really need any of this other stuff. So I would suggest just deleting it. You do definitely want to keep your, let's say I think that chipmunks are a function of picnic tables, which you obviously don't have, but let's pretend that we had a thing called picnic tables. And I'm going to make this, 1, 2, 3. We're just going to pretend that the chipmunks are lined up in area from 1 picnic table to 39 picnic tables. And then I don't need any of this stuff either, so I can also delete those and just focus on my chipmunks and my picnic tables. So this would be picnic tables within 1 kilometer or something like that, right? So you might have the same information for picnic tables within 2 kilometers, or percent forest area, fraction of forest area within this. To insert a scatter plot, the, I think, easiest way to start is to select your X and your Y. And actually, the way that Excel works, the X is always the one on the left. So it might actually be easier to just like grab this and put it over on the right side, just for starting out, so that you don't have to also deal with data being backwards. The X predicts the y, right? So y is a function of x. So if you're trying to understand chipmunk density as a function of picnic tables, then chipmunk is the thing that you're trying to predict, that's the y, and picnic tables is the thing that you know, that's the x that you're trying to use as a predictor. So x first, then y. If you have a bunch of these lined up, just start with the one at the end, and we'll get to here. Actually, let me just create another one. So we'll call this picnic tables within 2 kilometers, and I'll just make this equal to this times 2, just for fun. So if I select all of these, let me just make that bigger so you can see all of these. I'm going to select my chipmunks and my picnic tables within 1 kilometer. And I'm going to insert this guy as a scatter plot. So that's what you're looking for, is a scatter plot, because these are not, ordered such that you would insert a line. So you just want a bunch of dots to show up on your map. Okay, so this appears to have plotted things correctly, because I can see this is ordered from 0 to 39, right? So this is my x, my number of picnic tables, predicting my density of chipmunks over here. There are some chart elements that you probably want to add. So for example, you want axes titles. Absolutely, you want axes titles. If you're missing axes titles, then there's no way to know what the heck we're plotting here, right? So this is an picnic tables, and this one is chipmunk density. That is not very informative, so I'm just going to delete the title. If you want to, let's see, so I'm trying to remember where the add data is. Someplace around here, there's an add data. Maybe it's a right click. Okay, it's in the select data source. You can add things to it. So if you got your x and your y wrong to start with, then you can always switch them and make the x, the y, and the y the x. If you want to add more data to this, so I want to add my picnic tables within 2 kilometers and so on, then I can call this, and the nice thing about this button is basically it lets you select, so I can just call it the title of that. My x's are the things that I am, are the predictors, the picnic tables, and you click on this, it goes up, and then I'm just holding the select button to go from the top to the bottom, basically. So as long as before you press OK, take a look and make sure that the number of rows is the same on both of these. So it goes A 2 to 40 and C 2 to 40. And then that should be okay. And I can also edit the name of this one because I want this to be called picnic tables within 1 kilometer and picnic tables within 2 kilometers. Okay, so now I have, these data are obviously mostly nonsensical, but you can see that they're both plotted on the same chart. You should also be able to add a legend, which is kind of nice. Someplace, you've got different options of where you want to put it. Maybe the bottom is a good choice of place for that. And that way the colors of your dots are labeled with the name of what's actually going on there. One other thing that you might want to do, and this is a right click to get this, is to select your different scatter plots and add a trend line. So this is just doing a simple linear regression in Excel, unless you choose something else, but linear is the default, and that's what we want to do here. And then we also want to display the R-squared. So the R-squared is the correlation that will tell you, in this case, an R-squared of 0.001 means there's essentially no predictive power of my random number or my ordered numbers and chipmunk density, which is not surprising because that's kind of what we would expect. It is totally fine if in your case, as you're doing this, you get a bunch of R-squareds that are like 0.00 or something like that. Just because you have a hypothesis that an animal is related to land cover surrounding it does not necessarily mean that that's what the data are going to show. That's why we do science, to test those kinds of things. So hopefully that is enough to get you started in terms of figuring out how to deal with this stuff in Excel, and I will see you in class next week.